Chapter 2. The Black Van. Jason.
No, I was in the other pit which was just a few meters from the one you had been dumped in. There was a ladder in there and I used it to get to the top and out of the hole. That is when I realized there was another hole and I opened it up and eventually found you. I said, explaining to my brother who had totally lost it. He could not believe how I got to identify a ladder in that dark place. Well, maybe he was getting a bit old or he had been dumped in a much darker hole to say the least. We had this conversation whilst having our late lunch. The timing of the day's events would be delayed as we had to take a long peaceful rest after the long day we had had. We had woken up after taking a lengthened sleep. By the time I performed my first yawn for the new day, which was a signal of breaking my sleep, my dad had already gone to work. I had to wake a snoring Lance who required quite a lot of strength as a pass out of the dreamland. I had taken a bath of warm water, playing swift music for my soul to get the kidnap trauma out of my mind, which seemed to be caged. As young crime investigators, YCI, of the nation of Otel, we were assisting the police in Otel robbery investigation, but we were suddenly captured before we completed the process. At our young ages and little experience, we were not yet used to these kind of horrific events, but we had to keep on fighting for the betterment of our society. We had to carry out 2 investigations now that was for both the robbers and the kidnappers. We had to find them before they caused further havoc. Working on these 2 issues hand in hand would require time to finish the investigations, but neither of them deserved zero attention. After all, the focus on the other form of crime which took place in the city was grabbed by these 2 giant law violations. The YCI of Otel, which was our department, covered the 2 cities, Otel and Otel. Any tragic events that took place outside these 2 cities were beyond our enforcement. Although the robbed citizens mattered too, my focus was mainly aimed on the kidnappers. How dare could they give us such a hard time the previous day? I felt as if my thoughts would keep flashing back on the previous obstacle so long the kidnappers were not put behind bars. We were not safe here. Lance was in a kind of denial as he seemed to have lost his memory. I was dragged in a long-shaped car, which was sort of a van, black in color. A white cloth was pressed on my nose till I fainted. I said to Lance.
Such clever thugs, but what would they really want from us?
Well, maybe they are also the robbers, maybe someone informed them about our search and they sent us away, down in that pit, so that our investigations would be delayed. This came to my mouth as I thought out loud. It had to be true because we were supposed to focus on only one big issue here. But what was the main point in dumping us for a couple of hours? Had they planned this thinking we would die in there? Several thoughts flooded into my mind. The best way to get rid of this stress was only to find out. Anyway, if they wanted us dead they should have just killed us. Did they know we would still get out of the pit, continue carrying out our investigations and maybe, still catch them later? If so, they better be out of the country by now. That would be boring as we would investigate on ghosts. These thoughts should be pessimistic, I said to myself. I concluded the kidnap was just a warning to install fear in us.
That's reasonable. Tomorrow we must go back to that kidnap spot and have some investigations.
Lance replied to what I had said. The day ended up in curiosity as I still had no answers to what had taken place. As we had planned, the next day we woke up, got a quick breakfast and headed for Otel. We got off the bus at what we called the kidnap spot as we had named it and planned. Such a place would forever be remembered. It was about 100 meters away from the Otel bus stop. It was quiet, peaceful and you could only see a few pedestrians walking along the road. Surely, this was the perfect place to perform any form of dirty mind games, and someone could actually be kidnapped here. I turned my head and saw a writing on a wall which went on Heavenly Earth Peace. This was written in white, inside a reddish circle. I then remembered this was the last thing I had seen the day before yesterday, before I fainted due to the white cloth that was pressed on my nose. Some kind of psycho should have written this. What did it mean? Old, skunky plastic bags were piled in the corner of the wall. I saw a rat dropping off from the middle of the heap and it ran away. Within a short period of time, the bags rose from ground level and dropped off, leaving an old man visible. He had been lying under the bags this whole time. I saw Lance gazing at the man in shock. He was an unusual kind of person. He didn't even look at us but just ran away immediately, following the path the rat had taken, with a number of flies following him. They were dancing on top of his kinky hair, which had gone naturally tinted by trash on his head. The man badly needed a bath. His clothes were dirty and abnormally ripped all over.
That should be a maniac.
Lance said. I just nodded my head as I had semi-concluded that in my mind, but Lance put the icing on the cake. I looked at the writing on the wall for the second time and knew the author of the words. With the exception of the old man, no one could have written that. By the way he ran, one could conclude he was using strength more than just a lot. A normal human being was not strong to that extent. He jumped onto the ground, went on his feet, turned back to us, ran very fast past us and disappeared in a corner. I raised both my hands up in surrender of what I had seen. Together with my brother, we had a moment in silence.
So the car came here a few minutes after we got off the bus to capture us. Well, it must have been following the bus.
Lance said, getting back on the right track. Yes, and it must not have stopped on capturing us, but just reduced speed.
So that there would be few chances for people to realize this.
Lance added and I agreed. We started roaming around the town, passing several buildings. When we saw a building with cars parked in it, we decided to stop. We entered the building to have a look at each and every car in there, maybe we could find the van that had taken us. The building had about 5 stories. We surveyed through the stairs, from the bottom to the topmost story. All was in vain. Not a single van we saw. Sometimes as an YCI you just had to be patient and hopeful. That is what I had learned from my little experience so far. However, I regretted my crazy energetic looks at each and every car, which I had performed moving my head very fast, as if I were a woodpecker with my eyes widely opened, twisting in all angles. That's what life is like to humans. It denied us fairness. We then chilled on the 5th floor, having general discussions. We were looking down at cars which were moving along the road. After spending quarter of an hour there, we eventually decided to go back. Lance reacted quickly to our decision and was already heading for the stairs now. I decided to give the road a last glance. When I felt I was now done, I turned my head away to follow Lance, but realized something amazing halfway through the process. There was a car similar to the one we were looking for being drove on the road. I fixed my eyes on there as I didn't want to lose the sight of this. Lance, get over here. I called my brother. Look. I said as he approached. He saw the old, long black car. Our eyes simultaneously followed its movement slowly, as if they belonged to one person. The car stopped halfway the length of the building, and its left light began indicating leftwards. This meant it was going to enter the building. We listened to the sound of the car's engine which improved in quality for every second as it was being driven upwards. It got clear the car was gonna come to the top floor. We didn't know what to do then. We were frightened and just paused. I then suddenly came up with an idea. Let's hide. I whispered to Lance. I crouched down and lay under a Mercedes-Benz that was near me, horizontally facing upwards. Lance got the idea and placed himself under a Porsche which was at a distance perpendicular to where I was. Just as his toes followed the movement of his legs, which was his last organ to hide, the van now reached our present floor. We could now see its wheels rolling at an average speed as the driver searched for a suitable place to give its engine a rest. The atmosphere got tense. Beside me there was a free slot. I realized Lance had made a quick clever decision as he had hidden under a car which was between 2 other cars, eliminating any possibilities of the long car parking beside him. I pushed myself upwards, placing my head between the front wheels of the Mercedes-Benz for safety. I could now see the vehicle moving towards the free slot beside me through the rim of the car's wheel. My heart seemed to have skipped several expansions or compressions due to this action which was taking place. I watched it skillfully parking beside me. The driver was excellent to be specific. The engine was switched off and some dust from the ground rose slowly upwards. The door was extended to create space for the exit. I now lowered my breath and froze any little movement that I could feel among my body parts. I just thought this was the best idea as I saw the image of a locust standing still, widely opening its mouth as flies gathered inside the opening. In other words, I imagined myself as a crocodile. The door extension was completed and someone went through the space. They placed their first foot on the floor followed by the other. Shiny suit expensive four-cornered shoes were covering their feet. The other two doors of the car followed suit and 6 feet were now on the floor. They were slammed and locked. The people started conversating. They were in a sort of an argument. You were supposed to finish them, not just leave them behind like that. Those were supposed to be their graves. Why didn't you take the role yourself than just standing outside guarding ghosts? You did not even have the guts to enter the pit, you coward, replied the other man. There was a moment of silence as this statement had brought anger. This was broke by a loud sound. Someone should have been given a hard punch. I saw a man getting on his knees, holding his stomach which must have been aching. His cheek received a thunderous clap and he tilted at an angle close to the floor. Wait, I was lying on the floor. Any further tilt would get me exposed. The man lost balance and continued inching the floor till he absolutely lay sideways. He spotted me lying on the ground. When our eyes got into contact, I rolled myself away. There he is, that's him, said the man. I kept rolling as I saw shots of the other two looking under the car. I suddenly hit a certain car's wheel and my invincible roll stopped. Lance was already near me. He had shifted his position. He must have been spotted too. By the conversation these men had carried, we could automatically tell they were the ones who had taken us the other day and they had regretted letting us live. Were we to be killed this time?